Welcome to Authors Night Live, a show where we dive into the stories behind the books and the brilliant minds that created them. I am your host, Dr. Talisha Berry, and tonight we're diving into an inspiring journey of resilience, healing, and empowerment. This show is about connecting with authors who share remarkable stories, profound insights, and transformative messages through their writing. Tonight's guest is Martha Glory Kartaoui, a wellness leader, speaker, and author with an incredible story. As a survivor of a highly controlled environment, Martha has transformed her journey from survival to strength. She's here to share her book and personal insights on reclaiming identity and purpose after trauma. Her story is not only about survival, but about rising, reclaiming, and renewing self worth. It's a message of hope, freedom, and transformation that I know will resonate deeply with many of you. But before we dive in, before we bring on Martha, I want to talk to you about the power of writing your story. Writing a book can be such a profound act of self discovery and healing. It allows you to share your message and connect with readers who may need your words more than you know. Or you may be an entrepreneur or an expert looking for ways to get your message out and upscale your business. Writing a book can establish your credibility and authority in your industry, expand your reach, attract new clients, and leave a lasting legacy. If you felt that nudge to share your story or expertise but don't know where to start, I want to invite you to join my Write the Right Book Bootcamp and group coaching program. In this program, you'll work alongside other aspiring authors, sharing insights, and you will support each other through each step of the writing journey. And it's more than just a group session. You'll get personalized one on one coaching to focus on the unique story or message you have. My goal is for you to be fully equipped with a finished book ready to publish that truly amplifies your brand and your purpose. So, if you're ready to make your dream of becoming a published author a reality, now is the time. Let's bring your story to life together. You can go to our website at courageouswomanmag.com/write the book. That's courageouswomanmag.com/write the book. All right, we're going to bring our first guest on. I'm so excited. Hey, Martha.
Hello, it's my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Your story is so phenomenal, so inspiring. I mean, Martha, not only are you a survivor, but you're a warrior who has turned your expertise into empowering insights for others. And that is so commendable. Thank you for coming and being on Authors Night Live.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
Wow. So, Martha, your story is incredibly moving. Your book, Glory, Going All In, the survivor from a survivor to courageous warrior. Let's pull that up so people can see. Yes, I love it, love it, love it. Thank you for doing this book. I mean, I know it was not easy to share the story of all that you have been through. So we're going to dive in and get to this story because I feel it's so important that so many people need to hear your story.
Thank you.
So, um, let's talk about a little bit about the backstory. Give me a bit of the backstory of you were part of a religious cult and it kind of shaped your path of where you are today, which is an amazing position that you're in now. So kind of give me the backstory and bring us up to where you are today.
Absolutely. So, yes, I was born into a religious cult, and I spent the first almost 26 years of my life in that cult. I ended up escaping the cult and the compound at almost 26, and then had to figure out what life was in the big world, in the scary world, in the thing that everybody takes for granted, right? Because they're born into it. And I was isolated, I was controlled, I was kept away from all of those worldly things. And so I had to figure out how to exist first. Then I had to figure out how to survive. I had just finished surviving this cult where I was physically abused, sexually abused, spiritually abused, and mentally, emotionally, all of it. I experienced unmentionable abuse at the hands of cult man, but also just the experience of growing up in the cult. And then I have to navigate. And so my story, the book that I've written, is kind of a 3-part story. It talks about the cult, then it talks about my healing journey, and then it ends with my principles for my coaching program, kind of like the full circle of like what I'm doing with it now. Because at the end of the day, what's most important is like that we don't stay stuck in our trauma. And once I realized there was healing to be had, I went all in. And it's not been an easy journey. I'm not going to try to paint it that way, but it's been the most meaningful thing that I've ever done. And I'm really proud of where I've gotten and now where I'm going. And so I don't live in that trauma any longer, but it is part of my story.
Okay. So people, often have their own concepts of what a cult is and what the behaviors of the people are that are in the cult, how they got there. Can you tell a little bit about that and how it, what were the lives of the members who are part of the cult? What was that like?
Yeah, that's a question that I get often. And there are people that choose to be in controlled environments, and then there are people born into controlled environments. For me, I was born into it, so I knew nothing other than that. So I didn't have a reference point. My parents joined before I was born, and so my parents made the choice to join and stay, right? But I didn't get to make that choice. I was born into it. And so for me, it was all I knew. It wasn't odd. It wasn't weird. It was just my life, right? Mm-hmm. And when you think about a cult, like control, isolation, the leader controlled what we ate, where we went to school, controlled everything. Everything was controlled. And so whether what we wore, what, we didn't, everything was controlled by him, and his rules became how we lived our lives. So just to give you a couple examples, like no makeup for the women, no jewelry, no t-shirts, no pants, no shorts, like we dressed very modestly, no toys, no TV, no newspapers, all those different things. That's the controlled environment that I grew up in and I thought was normal.
Okay. So were you able to go to school or connect with other people outside of the cult?
So I did go to public school some. I was homeschooled some. And I talk about that in my book and why I was actually pulled out of public school. But I did go to public school, and I was always my family was always kind of the odd ducks, right? Like they're like the pointing and the bullying and the calling names and things because people didn't understand us. And we weren't at liberty to explain anything because that was all we knew. And so we felt like the freak show. Like that was our MO. We thought that was normal, but we didn't know how to fit in. And you can't fit in when you are a walking billboard of I don't fit in, right? I look differently. I eat differently. I speak differently. And we were programmed at such a very young age that the outside world would not understand us. So we lied about our identity. We lied about why we dressed the way that we did. We lied about everything that was programmed into us.
So it was going to school. You totally looked different. Your attire, everything was totally different.
Yes.
Wow. So this was a religious cult. What exactly were the beliefs of from a religious standpoint?
So it started out as kind of evangelical Christian, but the leader was from India, and he was born Hindu and he was raised Hindu. So as the cult progressed, he kind of took what felt good to him from all these different religions, whether it was Judaism, Hinduism, Christianity. He kind of mishmashed and made his own thing. And so by the time I was born, the evangelical Christian didn't really exist any longer, other than some of the songs that we sang. But he had completely created his own religion. He had created his own fellowship, right? And it was whatever, whatever he wanted at the time. And the lead or the members were required, as he progressed and changed the rules and changed the dietary restrictions and changed the way we dress, like so did the members. So it was a constant evolving thing. And when he would use words like the Lord made known to us that da 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 da, right? Or we are not going to do this any longer because now we know better. It's of the world. We no longer subscribe to that. So we are going to now do X, Y, and Z. So it was very just him oriented. He was God. He was our intercessor. He was like the focal point. What he said went. Nobody questioned it. We just did it. That's like sheep to the slaughter, right? Like that's what a cult is. We were so convinced that he was it.
Wow. So was there a lot of people, and did you have other family members that were a part of it?
So all of my family was part of it. I still have a sister that is part of it because it is still going on today. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and the majority of us were born into it. My parents and 8 of my siblings are now out, but I still have a sister that's still there. And yes, there at any time, like when I was growing up, there was between 200 and 300 at any given time. But it was an evolving thing based on births and based on people leaving, and but it wasn't just my family. No.
So it was like a compound that everybody lived together.
No. So we did not all live in the compound. I lived in the compound. When I turned 18, I was chosen and moved into the compound with him. But no, the families owned their own homes. So there's some cults that everyone lives in the same kind of compoundish area or on the same land. We did not. We all had our own individual homes, and we commuted every weekend to the compound. So we all got together every weekend at the compound, Friday through Sunday. But then during the week, we would all go back to our own homes.
Wow. Many people wonder how anyone could become involved in a highly controlled environment. What do you think draws people into these groups, and what kept you there that long, and what made you say, you know what, I want to go, I want to get out?
Right. So that's a double question. I think what is attractive and what was attractive for my parents, and why they joined in the beginning of this, is the desire to be part of something bigger than themselves. My parents were hippies in the 60s and early 70s. They were hippies. They were looking to belong to something, and they were not brought up with a strong faith. And so they were searching, they were looking, they wanted to belong to something bigger than themselves. They wanted something to believe in, something to follow, someone to take the lead, right? And that's why this group was attractive. And in the beginning, we were told there was lots of miracles performed. There was lots of community. There was friendships built. It was all about the people. And then power and ego and money started going to the leader's head. And then things kind of spiraled right from there. But it was too late because everybody was already manipulated, controlled, already brainwashed. And he had already put himself on that proverbial pedestal of, he was the intercessor for God. And so he had everybody hook, line, and sinker. Now, for me, again, because it's all I knew, you don't know that there's a different world out there where everybody doesn't act like this or go to church and this is their experience. You don't know what you don't know. And so when you say, like, why did I stay so long? because it's all I knew, until I was exposed to something else that said, this isn't the way that I want to live any longer. I'm choosing something different. And eventually that moment would come and I would make my decision to leave.
Okay. So what was it specifically that brought you to the realization that and start questioning
Yeah.
where you were and it wasn't right?
So I was running and managing a business for the cult. It was the first cult-owned business, and it was open to the public. And there was this man that would come and visit my store very often. And over a 4-year period, we became friends. And I looked at him like a grandfather figure because I didn't have a relationship with my biological grandparents because of the cult. So I didn't have those relationships. So he would have been like the closest thing to a grandparent that I had. And he started talking to me, and he started telling me like, and I started confiding in him, and he started sharing with me that like the outside world doesn't act like this, doesn't do the same things, right? And he started making me question everything. And as I gained his trust and he gained mine, I started opening up about my experiences. I started opening up about my abuse and my trauma. And he started telling me, this isn't normal. This is illegal. This is not good. This is bad. This is not what God has for your life. This is not, and he's the first person that started talking to me about Jesus and started talking to me about love and started talking to me about God's grace and mercy. I'd never heard those things in the cult. So he was kind of the catalyst that started me thinking and saying, this doesn't feel right anymore. Like there's a whole world outside, and I don't feel like this is where I belong anymore. But the actual thing that made me decide to leave was I found one of my sisters on the internet, and we started communicating, and I found out she was pregnant. And the moment I found out she was pregnant, I said, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get home, and I've got to be with my sister when she gives birth to her first child. Like, I never had aunts and uncles. I want to be an auntie to whatever this baby is. And I was bound and determined in that phone call to find a way to leave. And that was the biggest catalyst for me.
So upon leaving, was it more like you just made a decision and you left? Did you have to escape? What was that like?
I had to escape because I lived in the compound. The only time I left the compound was to go to work, and I worked 12 to 16 hours a day every day and never got paid. It was basically slave labor. So every move of mine was controlled. Every move of mine was watched. I didn't have freedom. So yes, I had to escape in the middle of the night. And the older gentleman that I told you about, I call him Papa. Papa and I planned and executed the escape on December 27th of 2004 in the middle of a horrendous blizzard. But it was a divine blizzard because it was what I needed in order to get safely out of the compound.
So did you have to, you didn't tell anybody, you didn't tell your parents? Your parents were still there, still in the compound, correct?
My parents never lived in the compound. I lived in the compound exclusively, my parents, but no, nobody knew. I couldn't tell anybody because if I told anybody, somebody would tell Cult Man, and I would have been thwarted. I would have been stopped. And so nobody knew except for Papa. It was me and Papa. And I knew my sister on the outside knew, but nobody else.
Wow. So did anyone try to look for you, try to stop you? Did you have to live? Did you have to hide? What was that like?
All of the above. Yes. I hid. I lived on the run for 3 months. He sent his henchmen after me. Like, yes, it wasn't just like I got out and then everything was fine. I knew too much. I had seen too much. I had survived too much. And so I needed to be stopped. And so he tried for a long time to find me, to catch me, to bring me back. But eventually that died down, and then I was able to start my life over. I made my way back to North Carolina and then started putting my life back together. But the biggest part was my parents got out of the cult, and said, like, we're done. We're putting a stop to this. Like, this isn't what we're choosing any longer. And that was when they realized they no longer controlled me either.
Wow. So your family, all of your family is out except one
One sister. Yes.
sister? Okay. And she's not, do you have any communication with her?
No.
Wow. Okay. Well, in your book, Glory, Going All In, you talk about healing through faith and spiritual practices. How did your faith evolve during the process, and how did it support your recovery?
Wow, that's a really, really great question, and it's something that I'm passionate about, obviously. But when I got out of the cult, I have to be honest, I was mad at God. I felt abandoned by God, and I was angry, and I was lost. And as I started navigating this scary journey of being on the outside, and now I had the ability to make my own decisions, and I had the ability to live my own life, I didn't know how to. And so God played no role in my life when I first got out. But eventually my life would start spiraling out of control in a different way. And I realized I needed something. And so eventually I was able to find what spoke to me. And I got to make the decision with what I believed. But I had, during that time, I had to question everything that I grew up with. I had to question everything that Papa told me. I had to question everything that I was being exposed to now, because I had to figure out what felt good to Martha. And I'd never asked myself that before, because I was just told what to believe. I'd never been given the autonomy to decide what I believed. So when I talk about God now, God and I have a personal relationship. And that personal relationship has allowed me to navigate this healing journey in a way that I would not have been able to navigate without that relationship, because it's mine. Nobody gave it to me. It's mine. I have figured out what that means to me, and it's precious, and nobody can taint it, and nobody can control it. And now God is what I have decided God is for me in my life. And for me, that's strength, that's fortitude, that's grace, that's mercy, that's love. All of that's what God is to me now. And without those things, my healing journey would look very, very different.
Wow. And once you left, how did you begin reclaiming the light? What was the things that you can share the most that you did, and was there a particular step or practice that was most helpful when you started?
So I've been out almost 20 years now. In December, it'll be 20 years. And my journey of healing didn't start until, I would say, like the last 12 years. And when I said that my life fell apart, my life literally fell apart. And when I say that, my physical body fell apart, my emotional, mental, everything started crashing in on me, because I tried to build these walls of my past life and my now life and try to just act like it didn't happen. But trauma doesn't work like that. Trauma follows you. Trauma hunts you down until you deal with it and you heal through it, and you recognize it for what it is, and then you heal it and release it. And so the first 10 years, I was just running, trying to create a new life. And it was following me. It was like that dark shadow constantly behind me. And I got married and I did all of the things. And I worked really hard and became successful professional. But that shadow of that pain, of that trauma, of all the things that I experienced were constantly behind me. So I would say, like, when my physical body really started breaking down, that's what got my attention. And I remember the time when I looked in the mirror for the last time and said, I don't like what I see, and I've got to figure out how to fix that. I've got to figure out how, like, I can find something that is going to help me look better, feel better, be better. And it was just like I was grossly overweight. I had so many trauma-induced physical ailments that's chronic back pain, migraines, neck pain, gastrointestinal issues, PTSD, like you name it, fibromyalgia. I had all of those things, and literally I was falling apart from the inside out. And so that's what got my attention, was like, no, I got to start doing the work on healing the trauma that I've been running from all of these years. And that created the breakthrough of like, okay, now I can start moving forward. But it was hellish years.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break, and I want to come back and talk about some of the things that you did and people can do when they realize that they're out of alignment spiritually. And that's what exactly where you were when you said you had all these different things and ailments going on. So let's talk about that when we come back to this commercial break.
Everything hinges on identity. It is the compass of our faith that aligns with the Holy Spirit to fulfill the Father's will. Wrapped up in identity is who we are, the purpose of our being, and every God-breathed promise that manifests as our success. Hello, I'm Laquita Monley, and I'm the author of Redefining Success, 8 Tools That I Use to Develop a Growth Mindset. In this amazing book, not only will I share with you 8 tools that I use for a growth mindset, but I'll also share the applicable principles based on God's word that you can easily implement in your life journey. So no matter where you are and no matter where you see yourself in the future, this book will be a tool that you need for your toolbox. Don't wait, get it today, and it can be found on Amazon by simply searching Redefining Success, 8 Tools That I Use for a Growth Mindset. Take care.
All right, and we're back. I want to get into some of the things that you were able to do to relieve some of the issues that you were having. What are some of the steps? What can you share with our listeners?
Right before break, we were talking about spirituality and how that really was the cornerstone of my healing. And one of the most powerful things that happened to me at the beginning of this growth journey and this healing journey was I started realizing that what God said, who God said I was, and who God created me to be, I wasn't any of those things in the place that I was. And so I started realizing that God made me perfectly and wonderfully, fearfully made me. And I was a child of God, and God loved me. And if those things were true and I believed them to be true, then I needed to start treating myself, treating my physical body as such. I needed to be a steward of my physical body, my emotional, my nervous system. I needed to be a good steward of those things if I truly believed that I was a child of God and that I was perfectly and wonderfully made. Because what I was seeing in the mirror was not in alignment with who I believed God said I was or God had created me to be. So that was super powerful for me of like, how do I get back to the woman that I know is inside, behind all of that gunk and yuck and labels and trauma and all of that stuff? How do I peel away the layers and get back to the gem that God created me to be? And that really was the gasoline that really kept me fueled as I continued my healing journey.
Wow. Now, one of the quotes that you said was, surviving a cult is not a death sentence, but quitting on yourself is. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So many people go through their whole life stuck by something that happened to them, whatever that is, right? Trauma is trauma. Pain is pain. I'm not here to say anything about mine's worse than yours or yours is worse than mine, because it's all irrelevant. Pain is pain. Trauma is trauma. But so often we go through our whole life stuck and blaming something, blaming an experience, blaming a trauma for whatever happens in our life. And so what I mean by that quote is staying stuck, like that is a choice. Healing is a choice. So yes, I survived a cult, which in itself is, to God be the glory, right? Because a lot of people don't do that either, experiencing the things that I did. But I made the choice to heal or start this healing journey. I will be continuing to heal until I leave this human body, because it's not a destination. It's a constant journey. It's a constant process. And I'm constantly continuing to do that, grow, evaluate, and then elevate, and then grow, right? It's a constant process. And so giving up on yourself is a choice. And if you do nothing, you give up on yourself. And then that energy is continued. Those generational cycles continue. And that will be the generation of the next generation as well, if you don't stop it in its tracks and choose to heal, choose to not be stuck, choose to do what needs to be done to get back to the person that God created you to be, and do the things that God's called you to do with those experiences.
Wow. Tell me, what would you say to your younger self? You know, all of that, the process that you have gone through, the healing, the self-discovery, freeing yourself and escaping the cult. What would you say to that young girl? You had Papa, what his name was Papa, that you had. What would you say to your younger self that was in there?
This is such an amazing question. Thank you. And it's a really, really hard question, but I've spent a lot of time with the younger self. I've spent a lot of time healing her. I've spent a lot of time holding her. So my answer to that is I would hug her and I would tell her, just hang on. You got this, because eventually you're going to claw your way back out of this darkness that you've been put into, and you're going to radiate light, because that's what God's created you to do. You have big things ahead of you. Don't give up, and you got this. That's what I would tell her.
Yeah, because there's someone listening that may not be in a cult, a religious cult, but they may be in a religious church or some other cultish like establishment, or just within themselves, that need somebody like you, that have had those experiences, that have survived.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? What is that one thing that that they need to hear from you? If you're on a stage and you got 100 of ladies in the audience, that they need to be empowered.
You are not alone. You are not your pain. You are not your past. It does not have to define you, because you do have a purpose on your life. You just have to peel away the things that have happened to you, and you have to step forward in the power of the woman that God has created you to be, and understanding that is the trauma isn't God's fault, but you choosing to heal and step into all that God's called you is your choice. But you are not alone. Pain is not permanent unless you allow it to be.
Wow. Now, you've created a unique trauma recovery program based on your journey. Could you share a little bit about that and some of the core principles or steps and how they support healing?
Yeah, so my trauma coaching program is going all in, and it's the principles that I used in order to create the healing that I've experienced. And a lot of those things I continue to do now. Some of them were in the beginning, but the very first principle of going all in is God. And for me, it's very personal. It's faith-based, but for me, believing in something greater than myself and understanding that all things are working together for my good, that's something that I've had to hang on to when literally that's all I had. That was my only hope, because everything else around me was falling apart. And so, but unlike when my parents were searching and ended up in a cult, I'm not controlled by that, but I revere that position of having a personal relationship with my Creator, with God, and understand that my actions are led by light. My actions are led by love. My actions are led by something that's bigger than me, right? I'm not controlled by it, but I choose to honor it and revere that relationship. So my actions do change. But my parents, they wanted something bigger than themselves, and they gave themselves over to a cult leader and then put him in the place of God. No, for me, God is in his rightful place, and my actions are different because of that. But God is the beginning of the principles of my coaching program, and understanding what that means for you. For some, it might be earth, right? For some, it might be whatever, but for me, it's God, and that's the beginning of the principles. And then there's forgiveness is another one, gratitude is another one, creating community is another one. There's lots of principles of going all in, but it starts with God for me.
Wow. Now, I'm a book publisher, so I love to make sure the title is powerful and that it relates to the story. So tell us, how did you come up with this title, and tell us what it means?
So Glory Going All In, cult survivor to courageous warrior. I'm a cult survivor, but Glory is my middle name. And for me, I never liked my name because I didn't understand it. I was named by the cult leader. And so, especially the first many years being out, I didn't want anything that reminded me of where I came from. But in my healing journey and in understanding who God's called me to be, I realized the power of my name. I realized the power that Cult Man had bestowed upon me without knowing, because God was in it, right? God knew what I would do with my life. And so now Glory amplifies who God is in my life, but also it's light. It's bringing not only glory to God, but bringing glory to and light and love and healing everywhere that I go. Glory is an amplification of that. And Going All In is my coaching program. And in anything, you have to go all in order to be successful.
Awesome. Now, you call him Cult Man. Is that a name that you have given after you have escaped, or was that his title?
Yes, that is the name that my family and I refer to him as, and that's what I refer to him as in my book. That's not what we called him in the cult, but for me, using the name that we revered him as in the cult, like that's giving him power, and he's powerless in my life. And so my family and I call him Cult Man. But that's just what we choose to use him as the personification of who he is, because he doesn't deserve any kind of honorable mention.
I agree. Now, the central message of your book is that we are not defined by our past. How did you come to embrace this truth for yourself? And what advice would you give to others struggling to let go of the past?
Yes. Like we talked about just a few minutes ago, getting stuck in the things that have happened to us, right, is just that, keeps us stuck. If we keep dwelling on the atrocities, the trauma, the pain, all of those things of the past, we cannot move forward. You cannot move forward dragging your past along with you. So for me, I had to forgive my past. I had to forgive the perpetrators. I had to forgive myself in order to move on. You cannot move on and you cannot heal if you're dragging your past behind you.
Wow. Now, tell us, what do you hope readers will take away from your story? And if there's one message you want them to carry with them after reading Glory Going All In, what would that be?
My message is always, you're not alone, and you're not your past. It doesn't have to define you. You get to choose every single moment and every single day that you wake up with breath in your lungs. That is a choice for you to choose a different way. But the things that I have been through, I recognize them as, yes, very traumatic. But I don't live there any longer. I have recreated the person that God meant me to be. And without all of the things that I have been through in my life, I wouldn't be the woman that you see in front of you. I wouldn't be strong. I wouldn't be, or as strong. I wouldn't be as resilient. I wouldn't have the message that I have without my past. So nothing is a coincidence. Nothing's in vain, right? Like God knew what I would need in order to prepare me for the woman that I have become, and the woman and the things that I will continue to do in the future. I couldn't have gotten here without my past. So I'm not angry at my past, but I'm not dwelling there. I had to move past it. I had to forgive it. I had to release it. And it's a journey. That doesn't happen instantaneously, but you're worthy of it. You're worthy of the healing. You're worthy of redemption. You're worthy of forgiveness, and you're worthy of digging deep to find the gem that you were created to be. You're worthy of letting go all the other stuff, because you are inside there, I promise. But it does take work. It does take dedication to self. It does take really understanding that there's something bigger going on. There's a calling on your life, and being able to step into that and understanding what that means to be a child of God. And that's my core message.
Wow. And you speak a lot about forgiveness. And we both know that forgiveness is the key to life. You know, there's people that have had experiences like you have, and the trauma that just can't seem to get there to forgive. It's just too hard. But you've managed to do that. What is your message to people on that forgiveness, that one word, forgiveness?
I would say that forgiveness was the hardest part of my healing journey, because the things that happened to me were not my fault. The things that other people did, the beatings, the starvation, all the things the sexual trauma, like all the things that happened to me were not my fault. And they scarred me in a deep, deep way. But what I realized about forgiveness is that we don't forgive for us. We don't forgive for the other person. We forgive for us, because forgiveness is so heavy. Forgiveness is like carrying around a bag full of rocks behind you everywhere you go. Releasing that bag of rocks, forgiveness is what releases that bag of rocks. We forgive so that we can move on, so that we can step in, not because they deserve it, not because they'll even ever know. Like I've never been able to tell Cult Man that I forgave him. I've never been able to tell some of the other perpetrators, that I forgave them. I did it for me, because I needed to reclaim me, and I couldn't reclaim me without forgiveness. I have been able to extend forgiveness to my parents, which people ask about all the time. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to share that with them, because they are meaningful parts of my life. And so I needed them to know that I forgave them, that I understood they were doing the best with the pieces and things that they had, and that they understood, and that they didn't deliberately put me in the hands of a monster, right? And so, but forgiveness is not for them. It's for me. It's for us. And letting go of that huge bag of rocks that you carry around of the unforgiveness, the anger, the resentment, all of those things are heavy. All of those things are yuck. And all those things will hold you back forever until you release them. And forgiveness is the way you release them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I felt people needed to hear that, just based on all of your experiences and what you've been through. To get to where you are today, it's clear that you had to have a forgiveness. You had to have that. Absolutely.
I did. Essential.
So what is it, or is it any last words? Let's put it that way. Any last words that you want to encourage? This is your time to really encourage the listeners, the viewers on this topic.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to just be very real about is that even though I have committed to a healing journey, and I've committed to self-growth, self-love, self-awareness, all of these things that I've worked really, really hard at and really, really diligently at, it doesn't mean life doesn't happen. Life continues to happen. The only thing that continuing that journey of the self-awareness, self-development, self-love, all of those things, the only things that those do benefit you from is that you bounce back more quickly. So I've continued to have trauma as I've navigated over these last 20 years. You know, I went through divorce. I went through miscarriage. I've gone through financial devastation. I've gone through many, many really difficult things outside of the cult, but I bounce back quicker when life's, right? And I have the tools now to help me navigate in a more purpose and passion-filled way. And so when life does happen, I'm able to bounce back more quickly. And yes, my story is that I'm a cult survivor, but I'm also a trauma survivor. So I've been through a lot of things in my life, and I'm here to tell you that I don't know what you've been through, but I know that you're not alone. There is other people that have shared experiences and that would listen and would lend a hand and would help you to start navigating your own healing journey. But it does take courage. It does take you stepping into your own story and saying, I'm not going to allow this to any longer define me. And I'm ready to start whatever this healing journey is. And so, yes, I've been through a lot of things, but I choose myself every day. I choose my highest self every day, the one that God created me to be. And that's in you. That's in you as well. I'm not an anomaly. It's inside all of us, but we have to choose it. We have to embrace it. We have to have the courage to step into it. And we have to allow to understand that we could rewrite our story moving forward, regardless of what the past looks like.
Wow. Thank you, Martha. So please tell our viewers where they can connect with you and purchase your book and follow you and get your programs.
Thank you. Yes, my book is on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. You can also go to my website, Let Glory Shine. You can get it from there as well. You can find all of my information on social media under my first and last name, Martha Kartaoui. But you can find anything that you want on my website as well about my coaching program and contact me. I'm open. I'm visible. Find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, you guys. That is our show. Thank you for joining us, for inspiring us here at Authors Night Live. Martha, thank you for sharing your story and the wisdom. Oh my God, the wisdom with us tonight. Your journey from trauma to triumph inspires anyone seeking healing. To all of our listeners, our viewers, I encourage you to read Martha's book. Go get the book today. Glory Going All In. It's a true testament to the power of faith and resilience of the human spirit. And you need to get this book.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you're out there and you're ready to tell your story, you can be part of Courageous Woman Magazine. If you want to write a book, we will help you write the right book with our Write the Right Book coaching and boot camp. And if you want to subscribe to Authors Night Live, you can just go to courageouswomanmag.com and you can subscribe for free. That way you'll get all the information, know all the things that we're doing over here at Courageous Woman, Authors Night Live, and all the other things that we got going on over here. And keep tuning in. We're here every week with authors with powerful conversations. And these authors are here changing lives, impacting one story at a time. So I'm your host, Dr. Talisha Berry. Until next time, right here on E360 TV, Introductory TV. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on LinkedIn, all that crazy. We're everywhere. So there's no excuse to miss. Be here next week. All right. Thank you so much and good night.